What's up, folks? Jeff Everhart here from Knock, and I've got a guest from Thena.ai, where they're building Slack support that scales. They're used by a ton of awesome companies, including Knock, and we're here today to talk about an inbox feature that they released in beta a few weeks ago. So before we get started, Mike, do you want to take a second and just introduce yourself?
Yeah, Jeff, thanks, man. So founder at Thena here, work mostly on the go-to-market side, so with our prospects, our customers, taking care of them, and then a bit with my co-founders on product and tech stuff. So in the weeds, also previously founded a company called Branch or Branch Metrics. Started that in 2014, scaled that up to 100 million ARR. Thousands of customers, and that was originally actually when we discovered the challenges that we ended up building Thena to solve, really around scaling support, scaling Slack channels with customers, and also just taking care of customers across multiple different channels: email, Slack, Microsoft Teams, in-app chat, all sorts of stuff. Deeply familiar with the problem that we're solving with Thena, built it to solve it for ourselves, and then ended up realizing that there's a bigger opportunity for other folks to use it too.
For sure. Can we dig in a little bit on what Thena does?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, you can think of us kind of in a couple different ways, one of which is maybe like a ticket management system. So you might be engaging as Knock, you might be engaging with your customers in Slack. That's like a more common use case, but you might also be engaging with them over email, maybe in-app chat, maybe Microsoft Teams. So first and foremost, the thing that we do is we help customers that have a bunch of Slack channels with their customers, right? So Knock has, maybe let's say 100 customers in Slack. We help you keep track of all those conversations. We help push that data into other systems, make sure nothing gets missed, and also give you analytics and metrics and all sorts of stuff for what's happening in Slack, which has historically been a black box for teams and for companies. We also do some stuff where, like, if you have a customer in Microsoft Teams, which sometimes happens when you're working with the enterprises, but you're in Slack, we can bridge those two together, right? So your customer can stay in Microsoft Teams, you can stay in Slack, but you basically have a shared channel across these two systems that don't historically work together. Then as we grew, we started really building more ticketing functionality as well, because a lot of our customers said, hey, it's great that you support Slack, but we also have customers that are writing in via email, or we also want to use an in-app chat solution. And so we built support for email, we built support for in-app chat, so we have our own in-app chat as well if you want to use that. We have our support for email as well, so some people use us for email ticketing as well. So you have a mix, but basically started really in the Slack world because we just found that more modern companies were doing more things in Slack with their customers, and then have expanded out to support these other channels. It also then helps you collaborate internally, because Slack tends to be the place where a lot of teams kind of like go-to-market product engineering might all collaborate together on an issue. Slack tends to be where that is. So Thena kind of helps a lot align all that. Customer issue comes in, you can be in Thena, somebody else can be in Slack. It just works all together so you can collaborate more effectively.
And on your website, right? And this, I think, is a feature Knock uses, but there's a marketing angle to this a little bit where you can sort of push product updates out to Slack channels. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So we also found that, marketing teams would historically send product updates, new product releases, marketing events, whatever, over email. And that's a great channel for a lot of people. However, we found at Branch, at least, that the engagement over email was relatively low. And when I would go in and push these to Slack channels, the engagement was quite high, because it's way easier to ignore a marketing email in your inbox. First of all, you probably unsubscribe, or maybe you auto archive it or whatever. And even if you don't, you just kind of see a marketing email. A lot of people ignore it. But everyone is in Slack all day, every day, right? And so, like, it's more likely that you're going to, our hypothesis was, it's more likely that you're going to see and possibly even engage with a Slack message that's coming from your vendor. And I got this idea actually from Slack itself, because we had a shared channel with Slack where we were the customer, Slack was our vendor. They were sending us updates and notifications in the channel. And I was like, whoa, I'm seeing these. I never saw this in email, but I'm seeing these in here. And so I ended up building something that was just at the beginning, just a hacky script to be able to send our marketing messages, but out to Slack channels, and then built that into the Thena product as well. So basically you can just like, let's say you have like 200 customers in Slack. You can filter down, create audiences, whatever, but then you can push messages about products, about events, about feature releases, etc. So it ends up creating a more dynamic dialogue. And it's, because it's a little bit less formal than like a marketing email coming from like a faceless person, it almost feels like a conversation. And so we see a lot more things like emoji reactions, which can indicate potential interest, as well as just kind of people replying to that thread, looping in their colleague, and then like somebody from your team can jump in there and engage with them. So we see a lot more engagement and kind of like downstream actions and results. Like if you have a call to action, like register for this webinar. We did something with one of our customers. We ran a test earlier with one of our customers, and they sent it out, and I think it was like something like 18 or 20% of people registered, or companies registered for the webinar that they sent out in the marketing blast. Like, good luck getting that in email marketing campaigns. So
sure.
It's a really cool feature. I love it for engaging your customers proactively rather than just like the reactive responding to customers. So yeah.
Yeah, and I can just speak to our reaction from our customers at Knock, and it's been really well received. I think you're right that it just gets there in the right place, right? So let's change gears a little bit, and if we could talk more broadly about how Thena considers notifications. Obviously, you have a lot of different types of notifications as a support tool. So maybe like, I don't know, your level 1 tasks. I know Thena also supports SLAs. So could you speak to me a little bit about how you all have approached that as a product?
Yeah, it's funny because like transparently, we didn't think about it too much up front. We were just kind of like building the basic functionality, and then and when volume is small, that's usually enough. Like you have some basic functionality, and that's good. And then what we found was both as we grew, but also as our customers grew, or we started to onboard customers with bigger volume, late stage private, even public companies, we realized that like the volume of things that some people were dealing with were an order of magnitude or higher than what we were dealing with. So like at smaller scale, if you have 50 customers, like, okay, it might be manageable without like advanced notifications and alerts and SLAs and all that sort of stuff. But as both your customer count grows, but also your team grows, you have kind of like this cross section of, you have a lot more customers, so you have a lot more messages, but you also have a lot more people interacting on those messages or those tickets with customers. Now add in the additional complexity of it could be across multiple different sources or channels. Customer could be in Teams, it goes and mirrors into Slack. Your CSM is in Slack. Your support engineer is in Thena, the Thena web app. Mm-hmm. It's linked to a Jira where your engineer is sitting. So now you have 4 different places where people are working. And what we found was that combined with like complexity of team and complexity of increased customer count it was overwhelming for people. So people would log into Thena and they'd be like, holy crap, like there's so much stuff that I'm looking at. And the response was at a certain volume, whatever that is, like for some people it's 100 tickets a week, for some it's less, for some it's more. But at a certain volume, it becomes untenable and you start to realize, I don't know what to do. And you almost end up in a paralysis mode because you're just like, I don't even know where to begin. And you basically, if you're working on customer stuff, you just want to come in and be like, what do I need to do next? What is the next thing? I can go in order by last reply. I can go in order by most urgent, by priority, whatever it is. Like, I just need to know what I work on next. And without any sort of prioritization, notification, all that sort of stuff, made it really hard. Add on top of that, you're working on stuff. So like if you're a support agent, let's say, or a CSM, and you're working on customer stuff, as you're working on stuff, other stuff is happening. You reply to customer A, you go work on customer B for 5 minutes. Customer A might have replied, but you don't know. And so you have no idea like that like I got to get back to the customer A because they just replied. And the reason it's important, it's not just about getting it back to the customer and making it easy and efficient for the employee. It's also about giving the customer an amazing experience. That is critical because I've personally found, and I think most people would agree, that when you give fast help, responses, acknowledgement, resolution to customers, it just makes everything better. For your internal team, cool, but for the customer, not only do they get unblocked and they get things resolved, so like if they're working and they're like, oh, I'm blocked on this SDK issue, I get a response in 5 minutes, I'm still working on it, I can finish that task today rather than going and working on something else and coming back next week. But also the customer is much happier, right? And I think there's some study or report that I was reading recently, but basically what it was saying was the number one indicator for customer satisfaction at the end of the day, irrespective of how complex the issue was, and regardless of whether or not you were able to resolve their issue, was speed of acknowledgement and getting back to them. So like you'd have something that like you couldn't even help the customer. You couldn't fix their issue because you're just like, well, that's not the way the product works. Sorry, deal with it. But if you got back to them quickly, they were still very happy versus somebody that you have a slow reply to. And even if you resolve their issue, they're still kind of like less happy or they're frustrated because they simply had a slow reply. So that speed is really important. But if you're like deep in the weeds on something and you don't know that something came in for customer A and they just replied and you can get them unblocked right now, that's a problem. But if you see that and you're like, oh, let me get back to them right now, they get unblocked, they're way happier customers, retain higher, they upsell more, and they become your references downstream for other customers, right? I'm a big believer in that concept of like your existing customers are a huge growth engine for you. So anyway, that's kind of like the day-to-day flow and the importance of the kind of like seeing stuff come in as the volume increases.
Cool. So let's transition to the inbox. Like obviously you spoke to the cognitive overload of managing all those support tasks. Was that sort of the problem that drove you all to create this inbox feature?
Yeah, I think it was a couple different things. I think it was definitely that, right? Like cognitive overload. And I think and just like the volume, it's not even cognitive overload. It's also just like the sheer number of things and being able to quickly look through them and see like what's important. What do I want to take action on? Because for us, like if you look at a typical like support issue list, whether it's a Kanban view, a list view, it doesn't matter. You see all the tickets and you can sort them maybe by priority or by last reply and all that sort of stuff. And I can show you what this looks like if helpful. But you don't know all the other things that are happening. Meaning, like you can sort by last customer reply. So that tells you all the things that have had the most recent customer reply. But there might be other things happening on tickets. Like, hey, an SLA just breached. Hey, a JIRA just got linked to this customer ticket. Or, hey, this assignment just changed from somebody else to you. You are now the assignee on this ticket because somebody tagged you in. Without an inbox view, you would actually like not really have any idea. And that was what we found was all these other things were getting lost along the way. So yeah, it's about the cognitive overload, but it's also about this concept of like these other things that happen on a ticket or on a customer issue that you don't really have visibility into historically, unless you actually proactively click into it and then look at it. I was just thinking about like, what are some different things that are analogous to this? I don't know if you remember. Okay, this is going to date me. Facebook, when Facebook launched, for the first couple of years, they didn't have the feed that everyone is familiar with, right? Do you remember this? Did you use early Facebook user? Okay. You had to actively go into somebody's profile to see what was happening on that profile. And then they launched the feed. And I remember when they launched the feed, people were like, what is this? They hated it. But it's kind of become like the common method because what it is, it's like, hey, there's stuff happening that you shouldn't have to go proactively look at, in our case, an account, a customer, a ticket, whatever, to see what's happening. You want kind of like this stream of notifications and information coming your way so that you can stay up to speed on what might be happening. And then if something is important enough, like, Mike, you got to sign this ticket. Okay, I'm going to click into that and see what's going on. Or this SLA just breached. Okay, I'm going to click into that and see if we can get a response out to the customer. So that was like a big thing for us.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good segue. Could we take a look at a quick demo of the inbox?
Yes.
I think that would help all of our viewers sort of just visualize what you're talking about.
Yeah, let me bring something up here. I'm just going to bring up a demo account. I am going to share my screen and share my Thena tab. make sure this is the one. Okay, cool. So you should be able to see my Thena view. You should be able to see the Kanban view where you can see an example ticket from SpaceGrow. Cool. And then just let me know if you can't see it. And then this is like an example of a Kanban view where, we've got our various different things. I can pop over to a list view. And this is basically the equivalent of a ticket, right? Like this is a ticket that has come in from Elon Musk. He has an issue. You can see here I can subscribe if I haven't already subscribed. But if I reply, Elon, cool. It's going to assign it to me. It's going to subscribe me already, and it's going to move it to waiting on us, right? So, and you see that it came from Slack, but this could really come from anywhere. Okay, now as this kind of progresses, I'm getting other tickets that are coming in, or maybe things are happening to the other tickets. For example,
or Elon gets back to you and updates the status of that message.
Yep. And so I might be able to even just go be Elon here for a second in the background. But that's all that stuff is happening. And if I don't reply to this customer after a little bit, also like that will breach an SLA at some point. So let me just go. I'm just be Elon. I've wrote a message reply. Okay. And so this is fine, but like I don't know if something has gotten assigned to me. I don't know if something has been changed. I don't know if a Jira has been linked to this ticket. I don't know if it's been assigned to me from somebody else, or like this one that is assigned to Brendan. If he reassigns it to me, I don't know. I have no idea, right? The only way I'd really find out is if I filter this down and I do like assignee, and then I sort by me, and then I find the ones that are assigned to me. But like, that's it. So we built this inbox view to give people more of that kind of like proactive notification information. And so if I click into this, now you can see here on the left-hand side, I've got this new reply from Elon, just came in 30 seconds ago. That is awesome because I wasn't really paying attention in this view to know that a reply came in. So I see that. I see this one that I was working on previously has been updated to closed. I can see here that some SLA has been breached. So you've got all sorts of things. And then here I can obviously click in at any time. And here you can see the actual message from Elon. And you saw that kind of like notification bell that came in here. I can also mark this as unread if I want to. I can, delete the notification if I need to. I'm going to mark that as read for now. Be all sorts of stuff. And then at any time from here, I can just go down to the next one. If I want to see what's going on here, this one was just updated to closed. There's not a new reply here. You can see that I was mentioned. So this is an internal thing, because kind of like people get used to like, hey, I'm in Slack, I'm collaborating even with my teammates in Slack. I get mentioned. I want to be able to know when I got mentioned. So here, this is more of an internal thread. And by the way, in this case, Sid is in Slack. He tags me and says, Mike, can you help me? I might be in Slack. If I'm in Slack, I get my normal notification in Slack. But if I'm in Thena, I get my notification here and I click in and I see what's going on. And then here's what something looks like if it's been, this request has been assigned to you. In this case, it's on me. So all sorts of different notifications here. And, from here you can filter down to show me just my unreads. And I can even filter down more. Different notification types. Like I only care about new customer replies and escalations, right? Like just show me those, because I don't care about status changes or SLA alerts or whatever, right? So all sorts of really cool stuff that allow you to filter down so that you are really focusing on the most important stuff. You're staying up to date and you kind of know almost what to do next, what action to take next, which frankly, if you're busy and you're getting hit from all different angles, you kind of just want a simple view of like, I just got to click in here. I got a new reply. That's good. Click into the next one. What's going on here? Okay, it's a new reply, but it's been sorted. Cool. What's this one? It's a new reply, etc. So
it looks like you all have layered lots of actions on top of this inbox view, right? They don't need to go somewhere else to complete like the next step of the support process.
Correct. Yeah. And so what some people do, and I tend to keep more of a holistic view, but like you don't need to go anywhere else. You can do everything right from this inbox view.
Wow.
I can work internally, right? Like I can collaborate with Sid if I want to, or with Jared here. I can respond to the customer here. So all sorts of really cool stuff. And then I just go down to the next one. And then some people just keep it like unread. They're just like, okay, what is everything going on? That's good. This one, this one, this one. And it's almost like my task list, right? Like this is basically all I need to do. And then when something else happens, then a new thing will pop up here. And then I know what I need to do.
Awesome. As you all were designing this, were there any other products that you looked at for inspiration?
I think one of the products that we looked at was Linear, because we're Linear users on our side. So we looked at what they were doing. We obviously looked at kind of like email inboxes as well. I'm going to stop sharing here. Okay. Email inboxes and what different things do there. Looked a little bit at Jira. But yeah, there's a few, but I think some of the more modern solutions. And obviously then we went and talked to you guys, right? Like we were already using Knock. And I think when we built the spec for it, right? And then immediately after building that spec, we reached out to you and said, hey, can we run this by you and get your feedback? And you guys gave us a bunch of great insights and tips of how we should design it. And that ultimately impacted how we ended up building it. Because you guys were the pros, you guys are the experts. So that was ultimately, I think, one of the biggest things, because we had in our head like kind of what we wanted to achieve, but we didn't know the best way to do it.
Yeah. And so could we dwell just for a second on like the technical details of that? Because like obviously what you all have built extends Knock's built-in feed in a big way. So like what did that look like for y'all?
Well, transparently, I wasn't part of the build, so I can't speak too much about the technical aspects of it. But I think for us, what mattered most was we needed everything consolidated, right? So like in that view, that was important. We need to be able to access any sort of events that were coming in. You can see kind of some of the list there. We've got a list of other things that we want to do, because I think for us, what we found in doing some user research was everybody wanted to use it a little bit differently. And having that configurability was important, but it doesn't make sense to build that ourselves, right? Like like some people wanted to view all, some people wanted just unread, some people wanted to have every single notification type. Some people are just like, I only care about customer replies. And so having that configurability was super important for us, because it enabled us to add those options for users, and then users could really customize that inbox. Versus I think like legacy type systems, even if you think about your email system, like we use Gmail, a lot of people do. Gmail is like one of the more advanced ones, but there's still a lot of like constraints to it. Like you only can do certain things. And I'm a big fan of, enable people to kind of have their configurability for their custom view. Because if you do that, then they're going to work out of the inbox because it's just what they want. So I think that was a big component for us, being able to offer that level of configurability by using Knock. For all those specific details.
Well, that's great to hear, because configurability is one of those things I end up talking about a lot. And like the more you can give users, the better. And in this particular case, where with Thena, you have so many different ways to work, right? Like you said, you could answer these things directly in Slack. Maybe you're using the inbox. It really lets the user choose what this tool is going to be for them. So that's awesome. What's the reception been like during your beta process?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we're still in beta with this. Hugely positive. Like people are really excited about this. It's funny because sometimes like you think certain features are going to be awesome, you build them, and then like it's kind of like lackluster adoption. And with this, it was kind of like the opposite. It was like, all right, like we want to get something out because we've had a couple of people ask for it. We launched it, and immediately people started using it. And then obviously they provide feedback and feature requests, and they're like, oh crap, like we got to go build. But that's exactly what you want in product development. And so awesome feedback, right? And especially from power users that are using the Thena dashboard very regularly and have a high volume, which is exactly who it's built for. They get a lot of benefit out of it, because if that's your job, if you're spending time communicating and working with customers and you have a high volume, kind of efficiency and making your job easier is clutch. So huge value. Great reception so far. Now we're excited to continue investing in it, which is good.
Anything on the near-term roadmap that you'd want to tease?
For the inbox view, even more configurability and sorting and filtering, snoozing, right? Like sometimes these notifications, you're just like, cool, but I can mark it as unread, or I'd actually rather it completely disappear for a bit and then come back in a day, come back in a week, come back whenever. So that snooze type functionality is, I think, going to be.
That's a really interesting feature.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Cool. Well, Mike, thanks. That's all the questions that I have. Is there anything else you want to talk about in our remaining time here?
Just appreciate the time, appreciate you and your team's help. I think we were able to build this quickly and launch it because of having Knock. And like I said in the beginning, we didn't know, or we weren't really thinking about this idea of like notifications and an inbox view. But with scale, it became really evident that this was going to be a critical part. So it's been awesome partnering with you guys on this, and I think it really helped us launch it, make it more configurable, but also launch it faster.
Same. And like I'll say, our internal reception of it has been great. Like we handle a high volume of tickets through Thena, so having it, like our dev success engineers have been like raving about it for a while. So
it's great to hear.
Yeah, well, awesome. Mike, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me. Great chatting.
Yep.